Hi, this is Sir Jet. I'm glad to have you with me once again for another episode of the History Lectures. Today our lesson is Apolinario Mabini and the primary source he wrote, which is La Revolucion Filipina. Alright? So this is a continuation of the war, our struggle for freedom. Last time we talked about Aguinaldo's proclamation of independence in 1898. After that war versus Spain, we now enter a new war versus the United States. And let us look at Mabini's paper on what he has to say about those dark days in our Philippine history. Now let us have a backgrounder on who our author is. I'm sure he's very familiar with you. Apolinario Mabini, that's how he looks like. He's on Philippine Money, you can see him there. And he's also in the very popular movie General Luna. He's the guy who is always sitting down. Okay, so that's how he looks like. This is an actual photograph. So our document, La Revolucion Filipina, okay, so you have to pronounce it correctly. Not La Revolucion, but the C in Spanish followed by an I or an E should be pronounced as a TH. So, Revolucion. Say that. Okay, very good. Revolucion. Okay, so Mabini wrote that document, and he is said to be the brains of the revolution because he served as the primary advisor of Emilio Aguinaldo. Now, don't be confused. There is another hero by the name of Emilio Jacinto who is called the brain of the Katipunan because he served as advisor of Bonifacio. Now, when the leader was Aguinaldo, he also had advisors, and one of them was Mabini. Okay, but ironically, many of Aguinaldo's decisions, he did not follow Mabini's advice. Okay. Anyway, we will look into that later. So Mabini, being the brain of the revolution because he's smart, okay, he gives a lot of advices to the president. He's also called the sublime paralytic, and in Tagalog, ang dakilang lumpo. Why is he always sitting down? Because he has polio. His legs are paralyzed, so he cannot really stand up. So he's called the sublime paralytic. Sublime means smart. Okay, and so the smart guy, but he's paralytic. But nonetheless, he is a hero. That one of our best heroes, actually. And he hails from Tanawan, Batangas. He's a Batangueño. And there's a town in Batangas named after him, Mabini, Batangas. But he is actually from the town of Tanawan. Alright? And what made him smart? He's a lawyer. He studied in Manila, graduated as a lawyer. And that was before the revolution. Okay? So, he's very, very adept in terms of law, politics, systems of government, and those are the stuff that he advised to the First Philippine Republic. Okay, so let us now have some more detail on the background of Mabini. Okay, there. A closer look at Mabini. He didn't give too many details about his personal life. We don't know much about him except for these things on the screen. Okay? his writings focused more on his ideas rather than who he is. Alright, so at the start of the revolution, he was imprisoned for his involvement in the Katipunan. So he was a member of the Katipunan. He met with Andres Bonifacio, and he was part of the group that was planning at that time to start a revolution. Now, the revolution started in August 1896 with the cry of Pugadlawin, and beginning on that month, the Spaniards started arresting the Katipuneros, and Mabini was one of them. He belongs to the first batch of prisoners that the Spaniards arrested because of their involvement in the Katipunan. Now, he stayed a long time in prison. He didn't really got involved in any combat, but he spent a lot of time in prison. He was released in 1897 with the Pact of Biak na Bato. Remember Aguinaldo? He got paid 400,000 pesos to quit the revolution. And part of the deal is the Spaniards would let go of their Filipino prisoners, the Katipuneros who were in prison, and Mabini was one of them. So Mabini got his freedom because of the Pact of Biak na Bato. Now, Aguinaldo went to Hong Kong after that pact, and Mabini stayed on here in the Philippines. At this point in time, Mabini and Aguinaldo do not know each other yet. Okay, it was Bonifacio who was Mabini's friend and acquaintance, but Aguinaldo is a stranger to Aguinaldo and Mabini were strangers to each other at this point in time. Now, when Aguinaldo returned with the Americans, okay, this is 1898, that's the time when they met. And Aguinaldo liked the guy. He instantly made him an advisor. And not only advisor, but head of his cabinet. Alright, so this is right after the Declaration of Independence on June 12. That's the time when Mabini became active in the government as Aguinaldo's head of cabinet and advisor. Now, in his job, Mabini had a lot of enemies, or he gained a lot of enemies among Aguinaldo's cabinet. They had disagreements, and Aguinaldo listened more to those others. Okay? And so Mabini got frustrated and he resigned from Aguinaldo's cabinet. Okay. Now, during the Phil-Am War, alright, so the new war erupted, Philippines versus America. He was captured and he was imprisoned by the Americans. Okay, so when the Republic was on the run, Aguinaldo was running towards the north and the Americans were chasing him. Remember the story? General Goyo blocked the way in Tirad Pass so Aguinaldo could escape, and the Americans were delayed in pursuing him, and that caused the death of General Goyo. So that's the picture of the Phil-Am War. Most of the time, the Americans were pursuing Aguinaldo. So it was a republic on the run. And Mabini, being paralyzed, and probably he was not really a combatant, so he cannot really shoot it out with the Americans. He got captured easily by the Americans. and he was sent in exile to Guam. So Guam, I mentioned this already in our Magellan story, is an island in the Pacific, and at this time Guam became also a US colony, and it became the dumping ground of the rebels that the Americans captured here in the Philippines. So Mabini was sent there. Why? Because he wouldn't pledge allegiance to the American flag. After getting captured, these people who were members of the Aguinaldo cabinet or a member of the military fighting the Americans were given a chance or a choice to pledge their allegiance to the American government, and then they would live a normal life. But Mabini wouldn't do that. He wouldn't pledge his allegiance to the American flag. So the Americans sent him to Guam together with Tandang Sora. If you know the old lady, you hear him in your old history classes. So this old lady was thrown to Guam together with Mabini and many others who wouldn't swear their loyalty to the American flag. And that's the time when Mabini wrote the document that we will study today. It's actually a diary, okay? And he published it, and it's called La Revolucion Filipina, translated in English, the Philippine Revolution. So he has nothing to do in Guam, similar probably to a lockdown or a quarantine period that we are experiencing now. So out of his boredom, he wrote what he felt about the Philippine Revolution. And so the book or the writings got published later on, and we have it now in our class. Now after some time in Guam, Mabini was allowed to return to the Philippines, and sadly, just a few weeks after his arrival here, he died of cholera. Okay. There was an epidemic at that time, and the disease was cholera, and he died of it. What happens when you have cholera? You have fever, and you vomit, and you have LBM until you die. So that's a very tough way to die. And Mabini was 38 years old when he died. Okay, so that's the brief background about Mabini and the document. Now what are we to do now? You read the material. I uploaded that already in Blackboard, so you should have read that. The document is quite long. I think it's 11 chapters long, like a little book, okay, with 11 chapters. I just selected 2 chapters, and that's the one I uploaded. And our homework or our seat work will focus on those 2 chapters. But if you're interested to read the other chapters I omitted, then you can just search that in the internet, the whole document, La Revolucion Filipina. So, I won't hold you too long. Go ahead, read the document, and I will see you in our next meeting. This is Sir Jet saying goodbye and thank you.